There's 3 clutch solutions in the Terrain Tamer range. So in this video, I'm going to take you through each of those clutch kits so that you can come up with the right solution that suits you, your four-wheel drive, and how you use it. So let's start over here with the Terrain Tamer standard duty clutch solution. So this is a direct replacement for the OEM clutch in your four-wheel drive. And this has been made, like all of their clutches, in Japan by the original equipment manufacturer. So with this clutch here, it's going to give you an extra 10% of clamping force in the design of it over the standard clutch system that was in there. So it's a good replacement solution for a fairly standard vehicle that's being used more or less the way the original equipment manufacturer designed it to be used. So in the modern four-wheel drive, we have a number of ways that we can get extra power out of them. We can add a chip, we can add a turbocharger to get more boost into the motor, or we can add an aftermarket exhaust system, or any combination of those 3. The end result is we're generating a lot more power, and all of that power needs to be handled by the clutch in our four-wheel drive. What's more, we're using our four-wheel drives to tow extremely heavy loads for long distances and for a long amount of time. So again, we need a solution that is going to do the job for us. So the heavy-duty clutch kit has a clamping force of 1,040 kilograms. That is a 25% increase over standard. And on a VDJ V8 diesel in the Toyota Land Cruisers, it's got a 33% increase in torque capacity over a standard clutch. Some of the other features in this clutch kit that you want to be aware of. It's got an ultra premium organic material on the clutch plate. Why would you want to go that way? Well, you see, the confines of design by the bell housing size, the flywheel size, all mean if you want to make a clutch kit that does more than the standard unit, you can't increase the physical design of it. That's kind of obvious. So how do you get more friction out of it? Well, you have to have a design that's strong enough to increase your clamping force and increase the coefficient of friction. So by having that ultra premium organic material in there, which is essentially the best of the best, that gives us that increased friction that we're looking for. One of the other elements that's in this clutch plate design is these dampener springs in here. You see, when an engine's operating, believe it or not, it's actually accelerating and deaccelerating with each time the cylinder fires. It accelerates the crankshaft a little bit and then it slows down until the next cylinder fires. Now, if we weren't to have these damper springs, those pulsations would be felt in the driveline. It would make for a less than ideal driving experience. One of the other areas that these damper springs come into play is when you do your clutch application. You want a nice smooth application, that's obvious. Well, these springs are going to help you achieve that. There's another area that this plate has that helps us achieve a nice clutch design. In between these 2 friction surfaces here is a small wave spring, and that means that we can actually get a little bit of springiness between these surfaces as we apply the clutch. So again, that's giving us a nice clutch that operates very similar to the standard clutch, but it is of a heavy-duty design. Let's have a look at the Fortified Clutch now. Now this is above and beyond what the average four-wheel driver is going to require. The military came to Terrain Tamer and said, we need an extreme clutch solution. So Terrain Tamer went to the original equipment manufacturers and said, we want a clutch designed like this. There was some reluctance because it had never been done before, but Terrain Tamer persisted, and now they have what they call their Fortified Clutch. It's got a number of elements in it that we'll talk about. Firstly, you'll notice that it's got a very different design here on the front of the clutch plate. Now, I'm not going to touch these surfaces because that would actually contaminate them. You may have heard in the days of old a term called the brass button clutch. Effectively, that's what this is. This is a velvet touch ceramic button, and that has been designed by a company who specialise in creating friction materials for the militaries of the world. Whether it be Navy, Air Force or Army, they want extreme products. Those extreme products have now been brought to bear in this Terrain Tamer clutch plate. So these friction surfaces here have a huge amount of friction, and therefore they have a massive capacity to handle that military environment. Let's face it, in a military environment, they need a solution that can handle extreme loads in extreme environments and do it under extreme conditions. And that's where this clutch plate has been designed to operate. On this side of the clutch plate, it's also got that ultra premium friction material, and that's so that the drivability of this is somewhat similar to a standard clutch. The damper springs inside here are, again, they're a high quality, high strength spring, like the heavy duty clutch, to control that dampening experience. Terrain Tamer has created their own tooling to create the Fortified Clutch solution. Let's have a talk about the pressure plates. Now, the pressure plate in both of these is essentially the same. They've both been anodized to give them a nice protective finish so that they're protected from corrosive environments, but they're also made with a special steel. It's called spheroidal graphite. What does that mean? Well, effectively in the structure of the steel, the graphite is formed into nodules or balls, if you will. In a traditional steel pressure plate, that graphite is structured more like flakes. And why would that difference matter? It comes down to a term called stress risers. A stress riser is where in the structure of the steel, if stress forms due to an impact or a shock loading, thermal shock loading, those sorts of environments, that stress can rise into a focal point and cause it to fail. By having that nodular structure of the spheroidal graphite, it means that those stress risers are diverted away and kept away from each other, so that this pressure plate is far more resistant to any sort of fatigue crack or stress riser crack. So that spheroidal graphite is going to ensure that these two pressure plates are extremely strong and they're going to do the job that's needed. So let's just recap on the three solutions. A standard duty to replace the original equipment manufacturer's design plus 10%. Then the heavy duty, which is going to suit the vast majority of four-wheel drivers who have power upgrades and do a lot of heavy duty work like towing and off-road work. And then we have the Fortified Clutch, which has really been designed for those military applications. But if you want to just go the extra mile and have the extra product, this is where you can head. Now, if you were to have the heavy duty or the Fortified Clutch, be aware that it is going to change the way your vehicle handles and operates. The clutch pedal may feel different, the clutch engagement may feel different, and there may be a little bit more clutch shudder and some of those other elements that come into it. And it's purely due to the extreme design of these two clutch solutions. So I trust that's helped you understand the offering of clutch solutions from Terrain Tamer. I'm Mad Matt. Stay safe on the trails. Terrain Tamer have a 50-year-old promise to deliver quality engineered four-wheel drive parts. Let's learn more in Terrain Tamer Uncovered.